Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our session around how GOAT Sneaker Marketplace uses full funnel data for a customer-centric Facebook program. Before we get into it, just a little housekeeping note. If you have any questions throughout today's presentation, we would love to hear from you. Please feel free to go ahead and enter them into the Zoom Q&A chat feature, and we will come to them at the end of the talk. And with that, into introductions. I am Alex Maguire. I'm head of customer marketing here at mParticle, where we are helping today's best brands bring outstanding customer experience to life with better access to their own customer data. Before I came over to mParticle, I was actually on the client side as director of acquisition for the e-commerce disruptor Gilt and Starwood Hotels prior to that. And I am joined today by a very special guest, Mike Fu, Director of Growth for GOAT. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, everyone.
Mike, tell us a little about yourself and your role with GOAT.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm the Director of Growth at GOAT. I basically lead our user acquisition, CRM, and growth analytics team. And that pretty much covers the full customer journey.
Okay, great. Can you tell us a little bit about the GOAT Sneaker Marketplace?
Sure. So GOAT started in 2015, and obviously we sell sneakers, but we are actually a marketplace for buying and selling sneakers. In fact, we're the first marketplace for buying and selling authenticated sneakers, and that's pretty much the story of how GOAT was born. I think maybe some of you know, but our co-founder basically bought a pair of Great Fives on eBay, which at the time was pretty much the largest place you could buy and sell sneakers that are rare. And obviously it came out to be fake. So it kind of sparked this idea of why can't we do this better? So in 2015, his co-founder basically said, you know what? We're going to create a ship to verify model so that when buyers and sellers, work through this platform called GOAT, the seller will actually ship it to GOAT first, and then GOAT with its team of great authenticators will actually find out whether it's real or not. And then once we find out if it's authentic, we'll ship it right out the same day to the buyer. So in a way, we're the pioneers of the ship to verify model.
Very cool. Got to be authentic.
Yeah, it's a core value.
Yeah, love that. So tell us a little bit about what the growth team is responsible for at GOAT.
Sure. Yeah, so obviously a lot of companies have a different idea of growth. Growth at GOAT started off as growth marketing, and we've been doing a lot more product growth, which is the other side of it. So for my team, I mentioned that I lead acquisition, retention, CRM, and analytics. So what I mean by that is that we're basically fully focused on the full customer journey. So whether that's your first impression, your first purchase, but also most importantly, your repeat purchases. The acquisition team then is focused on digital channels like Facebook and Instagram. The CRM team is focused on buyer and seller communications. These are typically in the form of email, push, and in-app messaging. Again, we're a two-sided marketplace, so we do want to focus on buyer and seller. So that's why we want to work on marketing automation through CRM. And then lastly, the growth analytics team is fully dedicated to building marketing models for all of our initiatives. We really want to understand what is driving growth and engagement. The team explores just new ideas about the economics of the sneaker industry as it relates to product, but also how do we generate new growth ideas using data and our teams to execute on it.
That's great. And so when you're looking to execute off of this data, can you talk to us a little bit about how mParticle and the data plan in mParticle has helped improve your data strategy?
Yeah. I mean, I think the idea of a CDP is still kind of new to a lot of people, but basically I talked about modeling and basically all these tech stacks. We wouldn't be able to build a lot of our growth models without a CDP like mParticle. We use it to build multi-touch attribution, customer lifetime value models, even incrementality, understanding if remarketing is actually working, and just many others. With so many different platforms with marketing tech stack, it's going to keep growing. So like, the average, I think, tech stack for marketers is probably like 10 now. So if you think about it, you have 10 different SDKs you need to integrate with, and that's 10 more headaches for an engineer to work with when they're working with marketers. So really, mParticle really helps save the relationship with marketers and engineers. But lastly, it just allows us to be more agile. We're going to keep launching new channels, and a lot of the channels are going to require data. And with mParticle, it just allows us to be more agile with sending data. And then lastly, it allows us to then have audiences, which we get from mParticle and then send it to the partners.
Wow, that's great. So you mentioned the ability to be agile. How has this ability to test new growth vendors via mParticle helped your team see success?
Well, I think the key to growth is being agile and also having the ability to test. So with integrations, it could take time. Honestly, it could take a lot of time, and it's really dependent on not just engineering time, but the relationship you have with them. Obviously, they're a support system, and if they find that it's difficult to integrate, they may deprioritize you unless you have good relationships with them. So by having mParticle, it, again, builds that relationships and allows us to test faster with these new integrations.
That's great. And so what are some of the tools and vendors that you've tested via mParticle?
There's a large list. I think a lot of modern tech companies have a large list, but some that we use are LeanPlum, obviously Facebook and Instagram, Snapchat, Liftoff. Even on the MMP side, it's AppsFlyer and Branch. And there's just going to be more to come. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of integrations for marketing.
All right. That sounds great. And so what is the growth? How has mParticle made it easier to integrate? You mentioned that, certainly getting time from engineers is not easy, but then also what about the formatting for all these partners that you mentioned?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about like 10 different SDKs. And if you think about a time before CDPs or even just like a Google Tag Manager, you basically have to have each SDK integrated by an engineer. And not every SDK is actually standardized. You have to, one, pass event back to them. And it's usually in the first party SDK. So if it's like a LeanPlum, for example, it would be written on the LeanPlum platform, and then we're passing it through LeanPlum. Instead, with a CDP like mParticle, it acts as a data hub, and all data is stored in mParticle. And then we're just passing that data to anyone who needs it. And they have to conform to the SDKs that mParticle wrote. So basically, mParticle is handling all the integrations for us and standardizing it all.
Nice. And so then when you're able to get all this data pretty easily into, a variety of partners, be it, something even as big as Facebook, you're able to focus a little more on the strategy. So really excited to have you talk us through a little bit kind of what the Facebook growth strategy looks like, if that's okay with you.
Of course. Can't share too much, but I'll share what I could here.
Thanks, Mike.
So with Facebook program, obviously, you're looking at a funnel right here, and we do full funnel marketing on Facebook, and not just a funnel, but loops, life cycle growth. We're looking at re-engagement, not just the first purchase, but the second, the third, however many purchases it takes. So talking about the top of funnel, a lot of, I think, user acquisition marketers will be focusing on acquisition. Obviously, that's their role, but a lot of it has to do with retargeting as well. So I just talk about the top of funnel. We use mParticle to basically send suppression lists to all of our partners, specifically on Facebook. We don't want to target people who are already exposed or like familiar with Go. We want to have like a pure acquisition channel. So the top of funnel would mainly be to drive installs. Now the middle of the funnel, obviously most people are familiar with this funnel, But how we use it with mParticle and Facebook, a good example is actually cross-device. So on web, when someone visits a web, our website through a web campaign that we run on Facebook, they're probably not going to convert all the time. But through our analytics, we found that people who come on web, download the app, and then eventually purchase on either platform, as long as they're both a web and app user, has a lot more LTV than either platform alone. So when we were talking about middle of the funnel, one of our great strategies is actually driving web visits and then retargeting them with app downloads, with obviously a different value proposition. And everyone is pretty familiar with the bottom of the funnel. This is where I think digital marketing actually gets the most most praise, because we're able to track this, and we're doing last click attribution all the time. So really, this is where we shine. In terms of Facebook, it's no different. We do a lot of cart abandonment ads, and I think with mParticle, it's really important that you sync with your CRM platform, because CRM also does cart abandonment emails. And depending on your strategy and your analytics, if showing an ad on CRM through an email or push and showing an ad on a paid channel has a greater incremental impact with ROI than showing it on either alone, this would be a great strategy. But if it's not, then you want to actually have audiences to exclude that, and real-time audiences obviously helps with that. So with bottom of the funnels, yeah, we definitely do cart abandonment across all our channels.
That's great.
Yeah.
It definitely helps to have a real trued up customer experience. So would you be able to talk to us a little bit about the heartbeat events that align with each layer of the funnel that you pass over to Facebook?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, obviously top of funnel for, I think, an app objective campaign will be your installs. Like that is basically their first touch point. Within that, you can also have app store visits, of course, and impressions, and the click-through rate. For web, it could also just be traffic and clicks for that. And then for middle of the funnel, you're definitely looking at more things that people show intent that they're interested in your product or a company. For an e-commerce site like us, it's definitely going to be account signups. So we want to optimize towards that. And of course, the bottom of the funnel is typically a conversion. But if you want to look at events that happens before the conversion, for us, it's going to be add to cart. We also found that specific to Go, we have something called a wants list. Basically, it's just a wish list. But people who have wants on their account shows that they have intent. They're not ready to buy just yet. And we all know that conversions don't happen in a day anymore. So that's why customer journey modeling is so important. And so is LTV. You're measuring the customer's journey along the way, and you got to look at micro events such as add to cart and adding to your wish list.
And also, you'd mentioned that the cross-device shopper is something that is a huge indicator of quality for you guys. Can you talk a little bit about how that has played out into the execution on partners like Facebook and across your growth stack?
Yes. So I can't provide like pure metrics, but from a strategic standpoint, what we've experienced, and I think a lot of other brands and companies probably experience this too. But omni-channel or cross-device is, buzzwords, but it's also very factual. From our analysis, we found that, as I mentioned earlier, a web user or an app user alone has its own LTV. Let's just say it's 2 in 1, 2 being app and 1 being web. And then someone who actually exhibits web and app will have a 3. So what that means is that it changes how we do cross-device marketing, and obviously we want to do more of it. So in terms of Facebook, I mentioned earlier in the middle of the funnel, we can't capture every web visit, but we could target them in different ways on different screens and just with different messaging. So if you were to map out that customer journey, obviously we want to get them on the website. We don't care if the CPA is high. If we're able to retarget them and track that and also get the full ROI on both efforts, and find that there's greater value in LTV in doing those two initiatives and the spend associated with it, we'll certainly do it. And that's what we've been doing since. And not just on Facebook, we do that on our CRM too. We do segmentation strategy on, if you haven't downloaded the app yet, we want to send you a trigger message to tell you to download the app. And yeah, it's just pretty much the cross-channel device strategy that we've been doing.
That's great. And, especially having all of your data, on a user level that is accessible for all those devices. It sounds like it's something that is even, has the ability for you to execute on in a reasonable fashion.
Yeah, I actually didn't even touch on that, but a lot of companies have web and app. And obviously getting app user level data is pretty simple with an MMP like AppsWire. But what about user level for web? That's actually quite difficult if you're just using GA. You actually have to do a little bit of engineering around it. And we actually are able to do that with an mParticle. So we pretty much just built our own GA, and all that data is piping as a single essential large data table, and it's cross-platform. So the single data table has web visits, mobile web, app, and we're able to then do easily multi-touch attribution on it. And that's all powered by mParticle's SDK.
Great. Perfect. Thank you for talking us through that. So I guess next matter of business, what kind of outcomes has this yielded for you guys from a growth perspective?
Yeah, again, I can't share too much numbers, so obviously whatever's on this slide is what I can share. But as you can tell, like just qualitatively, the intangibles are, it really helps us in terms of relationship building, which is something you can't really measure between engineering and marketing. And as marketers, especially growth marketers, become more and more data savvy, do a lot more techie things that involves crossovers with engineers. We really have to foster that relationship. So having mParticle really helps improve that. And then if you're talking about pure marketing operational efficiency, yeah, we reduced it by 52%. And that's basically measured as like an analyst's time to pull lists, upload them every single day. Real-time audiences really saves our analyst time and pretty much allows us to recruit more, because if I told them the job description is half their time is pulling lists and uploading, they probably wouldn't join Go. And then obviously his marketing spend is minimal because I'm measuring on a direct effect, but there's a lot of indirect effects that I'm not even adding to that number. So yeah, it's helped out quite a bit.
That's great. And yeah, I can certainly see how it makes a job description a lot more exciting and helps recruiting.
Yeah, you could focus on the fun stuff now, not the mundane stuff.
There you go. Gotta get those flag kicks. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much. This has been very interesting and really impressive stuff that you guys are doing over there in GOAT. To our listeners, thank you for joining, and hopefully you will all enjoy some awesome new sneakers sometime in the near future. Thank you again, and please be in touch if there's any other questions.